Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. We're actually early today, going live a whole minute earlier than expected. So yeah, we're beating stereotypes all the time. We're actually sitting down tonight because, look, I'm getting up there in age, My back, it's starting to really do something. I might need a cream or something, man. Standing up for hours, complaining about Ilhan Omar, going after her viciously, relentlessly. I have family that lives in Minnesota, and my sister calls me and she's like, "You're not letting her rest. She's gonna come after us because you're doing this to her." So I might need to chill out on Ilhan. But just one more video, though. We have a video scheduled tomorrow morning on a major investigation kicking off into Ilhan, and I want you to take a look at that tomorrow morning. So yeah, it's going to be big. But tonight, man, there was a hot mic moment. President Trump let it rip, ladies and gentlemen. He let it rip. The rhinos inside the Republican Party, who have never liked Trump and are only pretending they're on his team now because of the political convenience of it, they have a new enemy. Orange Man is going after them. And I think what Trump is planning to do to these rhinos is going to be huge. The pressure he's going to put on them, the political capital he's going to expend on them is going to be magnificent. Weird, I don't think we'd ever put hot mic, or we should ever put hot mic and Trump in the same sentence, right? This guy speaks all the time like, how he would behind the scenes. I don't think there's anything new in what he said. But yeah, he was caught behind the scenes going after the GOP senators in more than one clip, publicly and privately. Republicans have made it a responsibility of theirs to prevent Trump from governing correctly, putting all kinds of hurdles in front of him. And it's impossible. Alina Habba is someone I was looking forward to being in the government. She was Trump's lawyer during the lawfare years of 2022, 23, and 24. And I thought, okay, she's going to be White House counselor. I wanted her to be something else. And then she became something else. Trump appointed her as acting U.S. attorney in New Jersey. And she was doing great work. She went after the Democrat LaMonica McIver for storming the ICE facility and assaulting a federal law enforcement agent. And I was like, wow, we're actually doing things. The mayor of New Jersey was also charged with crimes, and those charges were later dropped. But I thought, wow, this is awesome. This is exactly what we voted for. Alina Habba is in there and she's doing the right thing. And recently, after Democrats filed challenges to her service as U.S. attorney, the courts ruled that she isn't lawfully in the position she's in, because you only have a window of time to have an acting U.S. attorney. After 180 days, you have to appoint someone via Senate confirmation, or the court will appoint someone for the administration. And we know these Democrat judges would not appoint someone like Alina Habba. So Trump is constantly trying to get ahead of all of this and appoint these U.S. attorneys, these federal judges, but the Republicans are working in cahoots with the Democrats to block him, block these important nominations. Why do we have 300 people watching? I thought, okay, maybe, 200 people would be here because it's, 11:30 p.m. Mountain Time here, and it's 1 a.m. Eastern. Ridiculous, but explain yourselves. Why are you watching this? Am I ruining people's bedtimes? Look, I just had to go live again, okay? I just couldn't help myself. There needed to be talk about this. Because I made the video on Trump's plan to surge into battleground districts in the midterms as revealed by Chief of Staff Susie Wiles. So I think that's huge. But now I'm doing another live stream on this because it's an important topic. But without further ado, Florida, why are you guys up at 1:30? What am I doing? I hope I'm not killing people's sleep schedules with my sleep schedule. Insomnia? Okay, I hope that gets cured in Jesus' name. I had that a few years ago. I remember it was like 2022. There was like a 2 month period where I didn't get more than 2 hours of sleep every night. I had to get melatonin. Turned out it was the pillows I was sleeping on. They were causing me, I don't know, they were too harsh, so I had to go get some different pillows. My gosh, I tried everything and I could not fall asleep. But here's the president on that hot mic. Can't believe I'm saying that, because everything Trump says is as though he were on a hot mic, because he doesn't have a filter, and that's why we vote for him.
Hey, Jeff,
Thank you, Brad.
you know I cannot appoint anybody. Huh? I can't appoint anybody.
They're unplugged.
Everybody I've appointed,
see
their
you.
time is expired. And then they're in default. And then we're losing patience.
So reporters are leaving, I think that was the Oval Office, and he's speaking to somebody named Deb and saying, hey, this blue slip nonsense in the Senate where, just two senators or a handful of senators can block a nomination of a U.S. attorney or a federal judge, that's screwing me over. Because I'm putting these acting U.S. attorneys in place and their time expires and they can't do anything. And then I appoint someone and Democrats will essentially filibuster that nomination. Ladies and gentlemen, herein lies the problem with the Senate. The institution, by the way, do you guys like the green screen? It's not a green screen. This is a black room I'm in. Okay, I'm actually in this weird, look, it's like I'm in outer space. Elon, I got to Mars before you. How do you feel? How do you feel, Elon? But here's the problem with the Senate and the institution of it. The Senate has always been aristocratic. It was a part of Congress that was revered from the very beginning. And there was supposed to be a higher level of decorum than in the House of Representatives. In the House, you had early members of Congress fighting each other, literally. They were challenging each other to duels, hitting each other with sticks, canes. The House was chaotic, but the Senate was supposed to be organized and perhaps more efficient. But somehow that turned on its head with the filibuster, and I can explain how that whole thing came into being, but it's not really relevant as it pertains to judicial or prosecutorial nominations. It's a completely different situation, but the blue slip system allows senators to just block a presidential nominee. Now, I'm going to be honest. I'm not an idiot when it comes to how politics functions. Well, I might be. I might be sometimes. I do know that Republicans benefit from this when a Democrat is in the White House. They are able to block judicial nominees from all angles. I like that. But the problem is these Republicans that are now allowing Democrats to do this did none of this when Biden was in, the Otto pen. President Otto pen was occupying the White House for 4 years. They did none of this. Biden got all his U.S. attorneys confirmed. They had a majority in the Senate, just like Trump has a majority with Republicans. And Chuck Sniffer got everybody through. It was easy. But here we are in 2025, and Republicans don't realize that Democrats don't give them the same treatment when they're in power. When Democrats were in power, they tried to get rid of the filibuster. But Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin said no. Kyrsten Sinema, an independent from Arizona, said no. So much so that she was forced to drop out of the race for re-election because Democrats were going to violate her in the primaries. They were never going to vote for her. Joe Manchin knew he wasn't going to win in West Virginia, so he just gracefully exited politics, and he knew his political reputation in West Virginia would have been completely tarnished if he voted to get rid of the filibuster as a Democrat. But the point is, Democrats, it's not for a lack of trying that they didn't get rid of the filibuster. They tried, they just couldn't. But here's the thing. The only Democrat in the Senate I would trust to vote against getting rid of the filibuster is John Fetherman. And that guy's in the hospital half the year. He's hospitalized. And even so, he's one guy. When Democrats eventually win the Senate at some point in the future, because Republicans are fumbling this advantage, this majority, when that happens, you know what they're going to do? Fetherman might vote no, but they're going to make sure that if they take the Senate by fraud and shenanigans, they're going to make sure that margin is a nice cushion, like 54-46, and every Democrat except one or two are going to vote to get rid of the filibuster, and we'll be back to square one. They weakened the filibuster before. They've done it throughout history. It used to be that you could filibuster endlessly judicial nominees, but they lessened that, so you can't filibuster as easily federal courts. But that's what Trump is dealing with, and here's his message to the rhinos, look at me, man, I'm sitting next to Trump. I'm in the White House. I made it, ladies and gentlemen, sitting next to Trump. Chuck Grassley. This is what Trump had to say to all of them.
As U.S. Attorney for the District of New Jersey after the courts disqualified her. Do you have any comment on that?
Well, she's not disqualified. You've got a blue slip thing that's horrible. It's a horrible thing. It makes it impossible to appoint a judge or a U.S. attorney, and it's a shame. And the Republicans should be ashamed of themselves that they allow this to go on, because I can't appoint a U.S. attorney that's not a Democrat, because they put a block on it. So if you appoint in Virginia or in New Jersey or in California a U.S. attorney or a judge, I mean, a judge situation is ridiculous. The only people that you can get by are Democrats, because they will put a hold on it. If I put up George Washington and Abraham Lincoln to be U.S. attorney in New Jersey or to be U.S. attorney in Virginia, we have Democrat senators, they will not approve them. And this is a gentleman's agreement that's lasted for too long, and it doesn't make it, especially in light of what's going on today. It means you can't appoint a Republican U.S. attorney, and we don't play the same game with them, but they do. And I hope that somebody speaks to Senator Grassley about doing something about the blue slip, because I'm telling you, John, I put up great people, top people, highest education, the best lawyers to be like U.S. attorney, and both senators, it only takes one, but if they're Democrat senators, they say, we're not going to approve it. I had a couple of them say, why don't you appoint Democrats? All because Senator Grassley, with his blue slip stuff, will not let anybody go by. By the way, the Democrats have violated the blue slip provision on numerous occasions, but we don't do it. And what it means is, I guess I just have to keep appointing people for 3 months and then just appoint another one. And it's a very sad situation. We're losing a lot of great people. We have
And time, a lot of time. We're a quarter into this Trump presidency, the second term, and we're still waiting on hundreds of nominees, dozens in important positions. U.S. attorneys are highly important. It's not just, filing indictments for political people like Letitia James and James Comey or John Bolton, Bill Barr, and whoever else we're going to go after. It's for normal criminals, crime syndicates, and these Republicans in the Senate are allowing Democrats to just block everything. It's ridiculous.
7 U.S. attorneys who are not going to be able to keep their jobs much longer because of the blue slip. Because unless, I think I know why they did that, to protect their ass. Okay, that's why they did that. But it should be done away with.
Yeah, so that's President Trump there. And look, Chuck Grassley, he's the chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, so he's responsible for all the nominations that are in the judicial. So all the U.S. attorneys, the Attorney General, the FBI director, all of those nominations, federal judges as well. So the Judiciary Committee, it's the most powerful committee in both the House and Senate, so huge oversight. Grassley, look, I don't like this kind of rhetoric, but it's true here. It applies here. Grassley is 92 years old. He's a great-grandfather right now to somebody. The median age in Iowa is like 39. He is more than twice the median age of the average Iowan. So he's twice as old as his state, effectively. The people in his state, that is. And I'm not saying old people in politics is like immoral. I'm not one of those people. I don't believe, we need youth. And no, not all the time. We need experience, we need competency, and that comes at any age. Trump is 79. If I believed we didn't need senior citizens in office, that would apply to Trump. And clearly that's not how I feel. So I think there's a case to be made that if we have an age minimum, then we should have an age maximum. And I feel like, or at the very least, you need to be able to do what Trump does if you want to be in office. This guy's traveling all over the place. He's holding 50 billion press conferences. I've been in the halls of the Senate. Most of these senators are lazy. They're never in their offices. Their staffers run their entire office. It's ridiculous. You go and knock and no one's there. Credit to the House members, because when I went there, I saw House members doing all kinds of things. I saw Eric Swalwell in the halls of Congress and his staffers moving back and forth. It's funny because, publicly they all hate each other, but they're like neighbors. You'll see like Marjorie Taylor Greene, and then you'll see like Eric Swalwell, and they're like across from each other. It's so funny. The most radical right wing. It's funny. I saw two offices. Free Palestine, like Rashida Tlaib's office. And then next to her was like, I stand with Israel. And it's like, okay, we could just both stand with America. But you know what? It's crazy. You guys are polar opposites. And they sat you next to each other, They sat the nerd next to the jock. That sort of energy. That's Congress for you. But Chuck Grassley is 92. At some point, he could just go back to Iowa, be a farmer and a grandpa. That's what you need to do. Why is he it's one thing that he's 92. It's a whole nother thing that he is the chairman of the most powerful committee in the government, in Congress. And he's incompetent. He doesn't know that we're in the modern age. We're dealing with a different Democrat Party. We're dealing with a Democrat Party that intends on packing the Supreme Court. Why aren't we moving ahead of that? Why aren't we going ahead and getting everything organized and put in place to stop them? Chuck Schumer, and this is kind of the dichotomy. Grassley believes that, hey, look, we have this gentleman's agreement. Chuck Schumer, when he takes power at some point, I think Schumer is going to retire soon, though. I don't know, Cory Booker, whoever that next leader is, when they take power, they're going to leave us alone in certain areas. They're going to be Democrat, but they're not going to destroy the country. And in some way, I understand that. It's like, hey, look, we're Team America, ultimately. We just have different ways of getting to that destination. That's the establishment Democrat point of view. That's the establishment Republican. It's the uniparty point of view. So to some level, I get why he would think that. But the problem is Chuck Schumer's party is being hijacked by radicals. Lou Valentino and I were talking today about a YouTuber named Destiny, this like gay guy who does leftist content. And Lou watched one of his videos where Destiny sounded a lot more like a super radical leftist. And Destiny is like supposedly a moderate Democrat. But he was saying things like, we need to censor conservatives when we take power. We need to use big tech to do these things. And it's like, okay, so if the average Democrat voter is becoming radicalized and leaning more into what the Zoran Mamdanis of the world are looking for, what the AOCs are looking for, why would we trust that the Democrat establishment won't capitulate to those people and hold up these agreements? And why should we trust that the Democrat Party will fend off those kind of people in their next elections? Because we have some big elections coming up. The midterms, the Senate is a little bit of a different picture. Republicans are expected to keep their majority there. In fact, I think they should win Georgia because it's a red state. And I think they're likely to take Michigan according to the polls. So they might get an additional 2 seats as well as winning in North Carolina, so they'll keep those seats there. And, the other seats are in states that are foregone conclusions, blue states and red states. But it's like, hey, we could seriously work on improving the efficiency of the Senate and getting what Trump wants to do. And here's the thing. And people tell me they're not concerned about the midterms. That's a partisan belief. You should be concerned about the midterms. I'll lay it out for you. Trump is not on the ballot. That's it. There's your deep explanation. When Trump is on the ballot, Republicans win. That's been the case for a very long time. 2016 first, 2020, 2024. All the elections in the interim, in the midterms, the common denominator is there was no Trump on the ballot. He was nowhere to be seen. So Republicans lose because Republicans aren't charismatic. Republicans don't say we're going to make the bus free. They're not appealing to the masses. They're not populist. Trump is a populist. Trump comes out with policies that shock the GOP, that the GOP doesn't want, like the GOP corporate establishment donors do not like, but he comes out with them anyways. Mass deportations, that's not a Republican policy. It's a Republican talking point. But it's never been a policy that they deport millions of people because their biggest donors are industry leaders that rely on the cheap labor. So the reason Trump gets votes is because he's a populist. He's different from the Republicans. They asked Trump and other candidates in 2015 at the Fox debate if they would drop out and endorse the nominee if they lost the nomination. And Trump said, no, I'm going to burn this party down. I'm going to run third party. He's not a traditional Republican in that sense. So we vote for him because he's different. But when Republicans are on the ballot just by themselves, unless they're exciting Republicans, you don't really care that much. It's like, especially if you're in a red district. I mean, it's different in a competitive district. People kind of feel the stakes a little bit more. There's more campaign ads, so more awareness. But most Republican candidates are very generic. Hey, I'm pro-gun. Okay, cool. Like, what else should you be? Anti the Second Amendment? Like, are you going to just say, no, we don't like the Second? You're never going to say that, are you, though, right? I'm pro-small business. Okay, who hates small businesses? Unless they're like socialist. Even Democrats say they're pro-small business. And then when they say, we got to stop the invasion of the border, but okay, you're going to get in Congress and start pressuring the administration to slow down on deportations because it doesn't look good for your reelection. Remember that? When Trump imposed tariffs, these Congress members were like getting back to their districts, and they were literally lobbying Trump to slow down on the tariffs because voters in their district were upset. And now it's of course turned on its head. The voters like the tariffs now. They like that the gas prices are coming down. They like that we're getting all kinds of historic investments into the country. So, Republicans are just kind of generic. They say what needs to be said. Their actions don't really correspond because of all these different, guardrails in the Senate and in the House of Representatives that prevent good legislation from going through. Remember the SAVE Act to prevent non-citizens from voting in elections by requiring proof of citizenship to register to vote? That was a game changer because it required chain of custody for every ballot. Now election officials had to prove that this vote came from a citizen. That's huge. But it didn't pass. It went through the House of Representatives, but it got to the Senate and the Democrats filibustered it. This is the problem. So when Republicans go out and campaign, half of the things, well, not even half, 80% of the things they say are things they can't pass. So voters are not enthusiastic. And this is the problem. This is why Trump is like, hey, let's not do the blue slip. Let's end the filibuster because we need to get things done. And if we get things done, we're going to be more popular. Trump is already popular. Trump's approval rating went down a little bit because of Epstein and whatever else came out. Voters didn't like how they did that whole thing. They didn't like Iran and the bombing of it because they just didn't think we should have done that. But his approval rating skyrocketed again. It's back to where it was in March. But Republican approval is like still in the same spot. Voters like that Trump is doing all these foreign policy wins. He's negotiating the ends of wars. He started talking all that heat on the Somalis, and suddenly his approval is like skyrocketing. Voters like these strikes on the narco-terrorist. No generic Republican president would ever do that, by the way. They would never strike the cartels. George Bush was striking Arabs in the Middle East. Trump is like, no, we're going to not do that. Let's strike the guys bringing dangerous drugs into the country. Everyone loves that policy. Has like a 58% approval right now. The polls came out today. Or yesterday, depending on where you're watching this. Let me look at some of your chats. We're not done. We're not done ranting. Okay, we're not done. Colorado Patrick. Is that Colorado Patrick? Oh no, Patriot says, I didn't see the remaining name. I'd love to see every state get the Minnesota microscope treatment. We're up late with you because we're so frustrated that we just can't go to sleep. You know what? Most people, when they win, stop caring about politics. And that was me in 2016. I supported Trump as a middle schooler, right? I was in a pretty, Hispanic neighborhood, right? This is why I love the Hispanics, but also have this like contentious relationship with them because they're very conservative. And I went to school with a lot of these kids and also black kids and some white kids. It wasn't until high school that I moved to my old neighborhood, and now I'm all around the white boomers, my peoples, my Indian software engineers. We made it out of the hood. We'll put it that way, right? But in 2016, I was for Trump. I would say it at school, and everyone hated me. They hated me because all the Hispanics were like, our people are gonna get deported. I said only the illegals. Okay, he said only the illegals. I remember this girl I had a crush on. She was on my side. Okay, she was on my side on that issue, which is interesting. But that was back then. Then Trump won, and I stopped caring. I was like, well, I didn't have that like attentiveness to politics because I was like 12, 13, whatever, however old I was. I was watching the debates like religiously. Everything Trump did, I was watching, and then he won, and I just kind of clocked out and said, okay, he's the president now. So for whatever reason, the winning side has a tendency to clock off. Oh, we won. Okay, cool. We'll go back to normal. But you got to stay engaged. So I appreciate all of you guys watching this at 2 a.m. Eastern. I don't know if you just don't have anything better to do like sleep, but that proves you love the country. Because it's not just me that you'd watch. You'd be watching other content to keep yourselves informed. So it's respectable. Okay, the biggest news I've been waiting for is the Supreme Court ending racial congressional lines. That will be the game changer. That decision is expected to come out in the next 6 months, so maybe sometime in June. You know, they have timelines for when they release their opinions. Injunctions are a little different because, you know, they can just rule on those as they come, so as to not mess up the mootness and ripeness of the cases. So they rule on those pretty quickly, but with cases where they are ruling on the merits of an issue, it takes a pretty long time. Because, you know, you got to remember, they're backlogged. You know, maybe that's one argument for why we need to pack the Supreme Court. They're all busy. They have so much work to do. We should never pack the Supreme. Oh, but to be honest, I don't mind expanding it to 11 if it means 2 new conservative justices. I'll be honest, I'm very biased. But I think we should just freeze the number to like 9 and keep it there, because 9 is fine. We don't need more. Are you aware of Leonard Jeffries? He's the uncle of Hakeem Jeffries. He's one of the leaders of the Nation of Islam. Interesting. Wow. Okay, he really is Walmart Obama, you know? Family tied to Islam. And you're telling me Hakeem Jeffries with the same thing. Same thing as Obama. Same story. Let's check his frickin' birth certificate. If I see Hawaii on there, I'll really know. Sean says again, Trump needs to get the 2,000 tariff checks out to Main Street. The problem is, at first I thought, okay, the tariff revenue is, I don't know if this is a word, but extra senatorial or extra congressional, you know, extrajudicial. It's outside what Congress, you know, taxed. So it's not like a tax set forth by Congress. But I hear that they're going to need congressional approval to send those out. And I'm going to be honest, I don't like the politics of buying votes by sending out checks to people, but I'm more than willing to engage in it. I don't care anymore. Because look, it's not like we're printing new. I'd rather just use the money to pay down the deficit. So instead of 1.7 trillion that we run up every year, we run 1.5. That helps with inflation, and ultimately that stimulates the economy in the long term. You know, but it's as long as there's no such thing as like, oh, the government increases the deficit to do this, then, you know, there's no problem. A lot of countries are exploring stimulus because the economies of the world are in a standstill. A lot of the job creation and revenue creation is in AI right now, and industries are bleeding. So you might as well stimulate things by just, you know, handing people $2,000. You know, like what, 50 million people? That's $200 billion, $400 billion, something like that. So I hate the politics of it because I think we should go back to fiscal responsibility. But, you know, every now and then you just got to print money and hand it to people. Do a little socialism. People's ears turn off when he says so many trillion investments they do not feel. Yeah, Sean, you're right. When Trump says there's no affordability crisis, in a way, I understand the political importance of saying that because you want the country to know that prices are coming down, right? Rents are going down. Wages are starting to go up. The labor market is really the big problem here. Gas prices have gone down. But the problem is the labor market, you know. People are just losing a lot of jobs right now. Amazon is laying off a lot of people. And because there's this like uncertainty with AI, like, is it going to really change everything? So I completely agree. I think Trump needs to, you know, really try with these checks, see how because you know, if we're being honest here, like a lot of the handout community, the black community, a lot of them voted for Trump because they said he gave them stimulus checks in 2020, which I think is a pretty lousy reason to vote for someone. Like, I think you should vote on the politics that he's promoting, not, you know, because he gave you money. You know, why don't you vote for him because he led the nation into a historic black unemployment rate, which which was a huge problem, right? He had more black people working, more black millionaires created. And I don't want to use the typical talking points, opportunity zones, but yeah, that is what he did. He did these things. Okay, look at some other comments here. 500,000 people, they said. Gas is at $2.15? Good for you, Sarita. Californians are crying. I think Sean's from Canada. Canada's sad. I'm going to be honest. I like that the United States is an empire and we can prop up our neighbors. But the fact that Canada can't actually survive without us, without our money, without our trade, without our business, we're like their number one customer. It's actually pretty sad. I think Canada is finding out that they aren't a real country. You know, I don't know, I just have a habit of looking into other countries' politics. Okay, I'm a nosy person. So I watch a lot of Canadian news, like I read a lot of Canadian stuff. And recently there was a story that just, you ever just read something and just this laugh just came over me because it was ridiculous. So in Western Canada, they are trying to expand oil drilling because oil is a precious commodity. It's lucrative rather. It's a very big money maker, and it can bring money for everybody. But you know who's stopping it? The chiefs, the Indian chiefs, the native chiefs. They won't let the Canadian government grant leases, not just for oil drilling, but for lumber, for all of these things. You know, Canada has like the top 4 oil reserves in the world. Theoretically, they should be like, in the trillions, way richer than California. Their industries should be unbelievably up there. Their companies should be some of the biggest in the world, like Aramco in Saudi Arabia, Shell, ExxonMobil. They should be at that level. You don't really know of a Canadian company that is in the top 10 of, oil producers. There might be, I just don't know any. But it's like you're a country in the G7, in NATO, and you're begging Indian chiefs that you conquered hundreds of years ago for permission to drill oil in land that you low-key gave them. Because human history is about conquest, is it not? Canada, or the European settlers, the Anglo-Saxons, the Dutch, the Germans, the Europeans that conquered Canada and settled there, I think one of the things they did was they told the Indians, hey, we own you now. You listen to us. And now in 2025, to get their economy doing something, to get their oil industry to get a lease, they need to get on their knees and beg the Indian chiefs to get them to drill, which, by the way, is revenue they would share with these tribes. They subsidize the existence of these tribes. I'm sorry, Canadians. You guys this is funny to me. I just think this is hilarious. Oil isn't fossils. Yeah, I think oil is something God put on Earth. I don't think it's like dinosaurs. I don't know where that came from. Fossil fuels. No, it's just, honestly, I'm going to say this, and I'm probably just going to be a conspiracy theorist about this, but maybe I'll be right in 200 years. They keep saying the United States, Saudi Arabia, these countries are going to run out of oil. At this point, I feel like it's an unlimited resource because they've been drilling that thing for a long time, and there's been oil wells that were, opened in the 70s. They're still going, still producing barrels. How is it finite if it just never seems to end? They're like, it's going to end any day. Remember when the whole argument for solar was first, not that it was green and clean, but it was that, oh, look, oil, we're going to run out of it. That was the solar industry's lobbying point. We're going to run out of oil. And then, no one believes that, so they say it's better for the environment. They actually said it was better for global warming because, the solar panels would absorb the heat. They pulled some crazy stunts to get everybody to support this garbage. Nova Scotia, or Scott, I don't know how you pronounce that, has 3 times the gas reserves of America. It's interesting. Karen says gas is $4.16 in Hawaii, wondering if it's a blue states thing holding back. It is a blue states thing, of course, because I'll actually show you guys this. Or gas prices. So here's the thing, right? I don't like the media, man. Sometimes I'm just like, I hate them. But I don't hate anybody. I just hate the institution of the media. Okay, I'm a Christian. We don't hate people. But when they say oil prices are down, because this is how it always is in December, because people, I don't know, it's just a holiday thing. That's what they try to paint this as. I'm like, that's not why oil prices are down like last year. Last year, Joe Biden was emptying the strategic reserves, pumping supply into the market to lower prices. So he could, so Kamala the cackling dragon could win. But this time around, the strategic oil reserve is going up. Meanwhile, oil drilling and leases have been liberalized a little more. And we're drilling more than ever, and supplies going up. Meanwhile, Russia's still locked out of the oil market. They have very few customers. India's importing crude from Russia, and they're refining it. That's like Russia's only customer. China's getting a lot of their oil from Iran. Iran is China's biggest oil exporter. And, countries aren't really it's the United States driving the supply. So it's a direct consequence of Trump's policies that things are getting better nationally with oil prices. But I want you to take a look at this. So it's a blue states thing. So where you see blue and, cyan, those are states where oil price or gas prices are reasonable. What do you see? Do you notice anything? Texas, $2.50. Colorado, $2.04. Wyoming, 2.6. Florida, 2.9. Texas appears to have the lowest, Oklahoma is lower than Texas on average. Some pumps are, like I have a gas pump near me that's at $1.90 something. Right? So you see historic lows everywhere, except look at the red. Funny, like the colors invert. Because usually blue is Democrat, and now it's, red. Red is all the Democrats, or all the Democrat states. Very few Republican states with extremely high gas prices. Only Montana and Idaho, and Arizona and Nevada. But Oregon, $3.07. That's huge. That's a whole dollar, more than a whole dollar over what Colorado is. Washington is almost twice that. California is twice that. Like, this is the problem. New York is $3, and that's kind of reasonable, to be fair. But it's like all the states with the worst gas price. Hawaii is horrible. Wow. Yeah, look at that. Look at all the states with the worst gas price. It's the blue states. The white is like in the middle. They're not that bad, but they're not great. Michigan, Indiana. So eventually you'll start to see at least, all the numbers just go down. We're going to be seeing historic lows. I think we're going to see lower prices than in 2018 or 19, whenever they were really low in that first Trump term, because oil production is going up and refinery capacity is increasing. So it's just, we're really living well right now. So yeah, it's the blue states. It's a blue states thing. Because all these states hurt the oil supply chain. They probably have $1 billion taxes on oil. They make it impossible for oil producers to do business. They treat them like terrorist organizations as opposed to legitimate industry that hires, millions of people. So welcome Western Canada. Sorry you have to separate from your mother country. At least your color flag waves maple leaf red. Irene wants Canada to join the United States. Look, if Canada wants to join the American empire, they can. Thanks, George, says we're doing this again. I paid 16 cents a gallon in, whoa. Gas was 16, don't lie to me. Gas was 16 cents a gallon in 1973. Okay, but the minimum wage would have been like $5. Well, maybe not $5. Can't sleep. Okay, what, everyone has insomnia in here? Everyone needs melatonin? Look, I got you. I'm melanin. I'm going to give you the melatonin, okay? The melanin in me is, look, I got the the melon. Look, this show is going to be I'm going to start singing lullabies to some of you guys, man. I guess we're all weird. Hey, a Colorado woman was shocked that gas was $1.83 at a gas pump. She was like, I've never seen this. This is low. And people vote with their wallets. So as much as I express concern about the midterms, I'm pretty optimistic when Scott Bessent says we're going to see some major economic W's, some wins in Q1 and Q2, Q3, Q4 of next year. People are going to start feeling the wins. I think I'm optimistic. I see the potential, because the moment people start noticing, wait, I'm keeping a little more money in my pocket than usual. Okay, they're gonna vote red. Okay, they're gonna realize, like, oh man, this Trump isn't so bad, like as bad as the media portrayed him. Of course, you're awake too in New York. Okay, unbelievable. I remember paying 24 cents. Okay, so we established that at some point gas was 16 cents a gallon. You guys were living in the 70s and 80s, man. Houses were $70,000, $50,000. Now, you had, 20% interest rates, but that's probably preferable to, a house costing, $500,000, the same house, but 6% interest. I'd prefer the 20% interest with the $70,000 principal than the lower interest and significantly higher principal. I'm 55. First job buzzing tables in 84 at $5.15. Oh my gosh. Well, I'm not factoring in inflation as much as I should constantly say inflation. Well, this is the consequence of fighting endless wars in the Middle East and every other region we fought wars in from the 90s onwards. Because after the Vietnam War, there was a period of time where the United States was pretty much fine. There was no war, right? The Soviet Union just fell, so our biggest rivals collapsed. Literally, Berlin Wall came down and everything. And instead of saying, okay, let's not fight, because, we'd been in a state of war since Pearl Harbor, World War II, and then the Cold War, and then, of course, all the wars mini wars, the Korea War, the Vietnam War, like all these little conflicts that we were in. We could have been like, okay, well, let's focus on domestic development. Let's upgrade the infrastructure. Let's take what Dwight D. Eisenhower did with the highways and make them better and bigger and stronger. But we said, nah, we're going to blow up the Middle East. And it's like, okay, well, we're cooked now. Because the national debt, suffered. We spent all this money, expanded the government. Obama came in and started spending trillions in healthcare. And all people got in return was like sky-high premiums. And then now we need tax credits to subsidize the sky-high premiums that Obamacare cost, the Unaffordable Care Act. And it's like, okay, we could have avoided everything. We could have just said, all right, well, let's just not do any of this. Ultimately, it was the failure of George Bush that gave the country Obama. If George Bush just did not do those wars, I mean, his dad kind of started it, And then Ronald Reagan decided to give amnesty to hundreds of thousands of illegals in California, flipping the state blue permanently. I know we like Ronald Reagan, Reaganomics, but he really did screw the country in significant ways. Reagan opened China, he started that. Well, Nixon kind of started it, and then Reagan took it to that next level. And then, Clinton and Bush, these guys just said, all right, welcome to the World Trade Organization. Come screw America. Take our factories. Take our wealth. And it's like, okay, And then the amnesty. States that used to be red became blue overnight. All these people earning citizenship felt they had allegiance to the Democrat Party because it was the Democrats who pushed Reagan to give amnesty. And it's funny because they said, in return, we're going to let you protect the border. We're going to appropriate congressional funds for border security. I guess maybe at that point they weren't talking about the wall. But Reagan was like, okay, let me do what you want first, and then I'll hope you do what I want next. It's like, no, you should have gotten the concession out of them in action, and then maybe, actually, you don't even have to make that decision. You just do both. You don't do the thing, and you still protect the border. But, hilariously enough, it was our involvement with the guerrilla groups in South America that gave us so much of the problems with the mass influx of Latin American refugees and, migrants. For example, El Salvador. Right now, Bukele is building a phenomenal country. He's aligned with the Trump government. So they're, moving in lockstep. Great. Awesome. So El Salvador is cool now. But in the past, El Salvador was the source of MS-13, but MS-13 is the U.S.'s fault. Because when we funded these guerrilla groups, to combat, communist influence in Latin America, we created humanitarian crisis, and we were the only country they would go to. And so we accepted millions, hundreds of thousands of these young men, young Salvadorans into the country, particularly in California, Illinois, the typical subs, Texas as well. And then because they were different from, the black natives in California and the Hispanics, native, all the different groups, and they were, migrants, they got bullied. So a lot of the young men formed factions, formed groups to fight for themselves, defend themselves in the streets of LA and all these other areas. And that's where MS-13 came from. And then Bill Clinton said, you're all going back, deported them to El Salvador. So hundreds of thousands of young men, well, not hundreds, thousands of gang members. But the problem is when they got to El Salvador, the United States told El Salvador's government that it would be a violation of human rights if you arrest these young boys that are clearly criminals. MS-13, a satanic gang. They do rituals like demonic. And we told the Salvadoran government at the time, you can't arrest them because they're minors. A lot of them were 15, 14, 19. They were young, teenagers. So we told El Salvador, hey, look, we helped you create the gang, and now we're going to force you not to arrest them. And so they became this transnational criminal organization. And you know what's funny? The guy who took over MS-13 was trained by Army Rangers or something, the United States military. Like he was trained, and he took it over and made them this sophisticated operation, and brought drugs and all kinds of trafficking into the mix. This is what I mean when I say our foreign policy involvement up until Trump has just been conflict creation after conflict creation. And then we only see the symptoms. We only see the consequences as the voters, as the taxpayers of America. We never get a say on the initial decisions. So that's why when I see Trump blowing up like narco boats in the Caribbean, I'm like, awesome. And the polls show it. A vast majority of Americans support the strikes. I don't know what the media thinks people are supposed to think when they see the boats are fishermen and international. Who fishes in international waters? Seriously? On these boats? No, they're trafficking drugs, and those drugs are worth the risk. Because if one shipment gets through to its destination, that's $50 million. That's a lot of money in the industry. So they're willing to take the risk of getting, struck by Pete Hegseth and Admiral Bradley of the Navy. They are willing to take that risk because to them, the money is worth it. If it gets to a third country, right, from Venezuela to a third country and then to the United States, that's worth it for them. And then on land, we're going to start striking soon. But it's like, why is the media surprised that Americans like that? That's why I pay taxes, so we can make bombs and drop on bad people. Not just, on anybody, on committing regime changes that come to bite us in the butt. The reason we had to accept Afghanis into the country is because they were the ones working with us, right? The guy who committed that atrocity, taking the life of one National Guardswoman in Washington, D.C., a young girl, younger than me. That's ridiculous, utterly ridiculous. But the reason he was in the country is because of the program which Republicans and Democrats voted for together. 20 Republican senators, including some of your favorite senators, they voted for it. They voted to bring Afghanis into the country after we withdrew in an embarrassing fashion. Because we felt like, okay, they helped us against the Taliban all those years and against ISIS and, Al-Qaeda and all these groups. So, okay, we want to, give them a chance to resettle here. And then they come and then they start doing this. They're on welfare. They're taking benefits. And it's like, okay, we couldn't at least bring some doctors and engineers for real this time. We had to go pick like the taxi drivers. I don't like it when I get in a taxi, or not Uber in DC, because when I was at the inauguration, guys, I kid you not, Inauguration Day was one of the worst days of my life. That Trump inauguration, well, no, it was great in terms of the political day that it was. But my gosh, like we all almost froze to death. Like, no, I'm not kidding. My ears, I feel like I could have had permanent hearing damage from the cold. Me, Neil Johnson, and some other people. We were waiting in line for hours. And whenever we'd book an Uber to go to the next ball or go to the next event, because there's all these events on the same day, we would have to book an Uber. It costs like $100 to go a mile because, it's so congested. And it was always like, oh, Afghanistan, Egypt. It's like, you came from Egypt to drive a car to get on Uber, really? Why didn't we find like great college students in Egypt that are Christian? There's a huge Christian population in Egypt that are going to align with America. Why don't we just find them? Why don't we go to? Why do we have to find you like, and you can't speak English, and that's a problem because I can't hear you. You're not taking directions correctly. And this was constant. I took Ubers everywhere, and it was like, why is everyone from somewhere else? Why is everyone from, but not, like, I don't mind if an Uber driver is even from Mexico as long as they can speak English, right? But it's like, we didn't even ask you in the interview to get into the country if you could speak English. But that was Joe Biden's America. Kind of curious what DC is like now with Ubers. I hated it so much, man. But there were some cool Uber drivers. They would ask why we were there, and we'd say the inauguration, and they support Trump. Well, every reasonable person supports Trump, especially the ones that have to work for a living. But it's like Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, and it's like, okay, at least find the Christians in those countries and bring them in, because they're going to love America. They're going to be like, wow, we're out of Syria, persecution. We're in the land of the free and the home of the brave. They're going to start voting accordingly. Bring some Cubans in. No one has ever said anything bad about Cubans, because Cubans land in Miami and they turn into lifelong Republicans. Miami's Miami's going to be blue. I think tomorrow there's an election. Or is it next week or tomorrow? There's an election coming up, and it's going to be bad news for Florida, man. Miami's going to go blue. Disgusting. Utterly disgusting. Okay, here we go. Statute of limitations is super low in Minnesota. I guess you're talking about the Ilhan Omar fraud. I have an update on that. So in the next video I will explain that statute of limitations thing, and I think you guys are going to want to see that video. So I'm not going to spoil anything. It's a pretty big video in terms of the information in it, where what Tom Homan says and the legal implications. Yeah, the statute of limitations applies, but not to everything, okay? It's not a foregone conclusion. Sleep time, what is no? Who cares? Who needs sleep? Trump is up right now on Truth Social. Who wants to bet money? He could be dropping nuclear news. By the way, Trump told Mexico, I thought this was pretty big news. Oh, okay, that's why. Yeah, so he told Mexico, hey, you guys keep violating this water treaty. This violation is hurting our beautiful Texas crops and livestock. Mexico owes the U.S. over $800,000 800,000 acre feet of water for failing to comply with our treaty over the past 5 years. The U.S. needs Mexico to release 200,000 acre feet of water before December 31st, and the rest must come soon after. As of now, Mexico is not responding, and it's very unfair to our U.S. farmers who deserve this much-needed water. That is why I have authorized documentation to impose a 5% tariff on Mexico if this water isn't released immediately. The longer Mexico takes to release the water, the more our farmers are hurt. Mexico has an obligation to fix this now. Thank you for your attention to this matter. So I guess the U.S. and Mexico share water. And it's water that's used for crops, and Mexico has not held up its end of the treaty. I'm going to be very honest. Texas people can explain this to me, but is this about the Rio Grande? What river is this about? And how is Mexico going to deliver water or release water into the United States? Is it a dam? I don't imagine they're, picking up water bottles like this and driving them to the United States. But I think it's interesting there that he said we're going to use a tariff power, which I think it's a good strategy because it establishes to the Supreme Court that, see, I can use tariffs to extract concessions from foreign nations. So Mexico is going to probably do what he needs them to do by December 31st. And the Supreme Court is going to see that and go, okay, so tariffs are a tool that the president has in the Economic Emergency Powers Act, and he should have that power for a long time. So maybe that's how the Supreme Court sees it, but brilliant strategy from Trump. That's smart thinking. It's smart. Yeah, I really need an explanation. So one way Mexico sends water to the U.S. is there's a lake and the cartels drain it somehow. The cartel. Since the cartels are in hot water, I guess they aren't sending. Okay. Probably a dam. Okay. Can any water experts in the chat? Someone just lied to me about. I just believed that for a second. Water experts in the chat, please don't lie to me. Please explain how water comes into the United States from Texas, like in the way Trump is saying. Because how are they gonna deliver 200,000 acre feet or whatever that measurement was of water in less than a month? Explain that part to me, please. I don't want to Google it because that would make me look. I don't want to look like a liberal that uses Google. I'm a right winger. We don't use Google. We use Truth Social. Please explain that to me because I'm curious. Oh, Mexico repays Texas farmers with water by delivering its share of Rio Grande water under the 1944 treaty. But due to severe droughts, Mexico has fallen. Okay, you didn't answer the question. Skybro the Hebrew. You didn't answer it. You're just telling me what happens. But how do they deliver water? Train and truck? Okay. How does that work? I feel like you guys are just... You're not on my team here. You're not explaining this to me as though I don't know anything about water. You're explaining this to me like I'll understand how water gets delivered from Texas. Come on, explain that to me. In tankers, they're not putting water in tankers. Come on. That's oil. Well, how else would they? No, come on. They're not there has to be a mechanism of some sort. Don't tell me it's a dam, though. Okay. They allow more water downstream in the Rio Grande. Huh. Diverted river. Oh. Okay. I didn't know you could. Well, I knew you could divert a river. I mean, that's the Colorado River to Arizona and Nevada. But I didn't really know how that worked in terms of Texas and Mexico. Okay, so I guess there's a river that needs to get re-diverted back to America. okay, then, yeah, I get why Trump is pissed, because you guys lying to me, making me look dumb. Water is being pumped out of the river, just like in the Central Valley of California. That California water crisis is the most man-made crisis in history, because they have a huge river that they just won't do what they need to do to it because they want to save this floppy little fish that probably isn't delicious. It's water they should be allowing to flow to the right communities, and they're just dumping the water into the Pacific because they want to save that species of fish. It's ridiculous. I think people are more important than fish, okay? Turtles, who cares? Let's use our plastic bags because they're convenient for people. You turtles can go find something else to lobby against. We don't listen to turtles anymore. We are far beyond that. Anyways, I'm disappointed in you guys, man. No water experts in the chat. Karen says in 1964, my dad bought our 2-story, 4-bedroom, 1-bath for $2,000. Wait, $2,000? What were you guys doing in the 60s? How? What? Who's building a house for two? Oh my gosh! If I could turn back time, to the good old days. Mexican president put a kink in the water hose. You guys aren't serious, man. Like, you expect me to believe Claudia Scheinbaum put a kink? What's a kink? Isn't a kink like a sexual thing? Like, how does she do that to water? How does she sexualize water? Oh my! I'm looking this up like it's a real thing. You guys just don't. Ninja Turtles are coming for you. Yeah, we don't care about turtles. I'm about to shower and I'm drinking it. That's my expertise. It's like I'll ask a question that's serious and no one's serious about answering it. This is frustrating. I just want to know, like, can none of you Google it and just tell me? I want to know how water just tell me, how does the water go from Mexico to, like, what are they doing to it? How are they going to deliver 200 acre feet of water in like 2 weeks that Trump is demanding that they do? Like, how? Just tell me. Don't tell me, oh, you're showering and you're a water expert because you drank it. Why? Why are you telling us that? It's me. It's like, I don't know. We just have it. This is frustrating for me because I legitimately want to know. Like, you guys thought I was joking. I actually don't know how that whole thing works. And then I ask, oh, George, the Treaty of 1940. I get it. There's a treaty that allows this water sharing, but you didn't tell me how the water sharing happens. Okay? This is ridiculous. I feel like this is bullying. Like, this is what bullying is. This is it. This is what I was told. Bullying happens when people don't answer questions. Genuine, earnest questions. I'm not even saying, oh, like, I secretly know it and it's a rhetorical question and I want you to, like, pretend that you're smart by answering it to me. This is one of those moments where I'm genuinely dumb about this. I don't know how water works. Well, no, What? Someone's gonna explain? Oh, it's two hydrogen atoms with one oxygen. Don't tell me like. Come on. George is troll. I'm trolling you. I'm trolling you. Okay, Rio Grande. Okay, you explain the body of water. Set by tributary channels. Okay, that has to just be a made-up word. Falcon Dam near Laredo, Texas. There we go. This is somebody I. And Nuevo Laredo, Mexico. Amistad. Okay, so this is a dam activity. There we go. That's all I needed to know. Pump stations. Okay, now you want me to believe there's. Come on, that's not how that. You don't deliver that much water. Okay, I believe the guy saying the dams because the dams make sense to me. It's canals and dams diverting water and directing it. Look, Sam, a real G, a real gangster, telling me the truth. Okay, tributaries are a real thing. Okay, you guys. Okay. Whoever said that, I take back what I said about you. You're not a troll. You're a real one. You're a real G. You're a real gangster. I didn't look it up. I looked up something else and that was fake. Okay, it's a real word. Okay, so multiple confirmations, and that's from the Texican, so that guy must know what he's talking about. They pump water from the Sea of Cortex via pipeline. Okay, see, now you're lying, because that's not. There's no sea known as the Sea of Cortex, Linda. Let me look this up and see that it's real. I'm going to lose my mind. There's no way. There's a sea of... Okay, but you said it wrong. You said Cortex. Cortez makes sense, okay? But there's a... I disbelieved Linda for no reason. She was just trying to tell me. Okay, fine. Long haul trucks. You guys think they're moving water in U-Hauls? In 18-wheelers? What are we doing here? Why would you even... Sea of Cortez. Wow. Well, it's Baja California. Who cares? Why don't we just take Baja California, man? Honestly, look, while Trump is on getting Canada, Mexico is going under talked about. I feel like California is incomplete. We need to take that whole like strip. Just take it. It's ours. Baja California belongs to America. Oh man, it's so beautiful just going on Google and seeing Gulf of America. Was it? Can we just go back to those good old days, man? When Trump came into office, we're gonna change. You know, he announced it at his inauguration. We're gonna be renaming the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. It's like, wow. Well, because it is the Gulf of America. You know, we have most of the coastland that looks at the Gulf. Mexico has very limited amounts of coastland in that area. Plus, it belongs to America. We do all the we do all the business in the Gulf. Baja and Greenland. I think we need to think about Alberta, Canada. Look, I know there's some Canadians in the chat, and you won't like me saying this about your sovereignty, but you guys really would look better if you just joined the American empire. First of all, Alaska needs to be connected to land. You know, that's for starters. Like, we don't want to drive into Canada and then to Alaska. We'd rather just stay in America while driving to Alaska, which means we, unfortunately for you, we need to own you. Your land belongs to us, okay? All the ice caps in the Arctic, we need that. Also need Greenland. This would be like the largest empire in the world, and you know, this is unfortunate that Canadians just don't see this. We would conquer you, own your land, take your resources, but we'll give you guns and lower taxes, okay? That's it. That's what we'll do. That's a good trade-off, I think. We'll take everything you have, all your oil, we're gonna make it work, but we'll give you the Second Amendment. You can hunt geese, whatever you guys do up there. Okay, you could keep the maple leaf flag, but as a state, you can be the 50th. Maybe not as a state, because that gives you the right to have senators and Congress. We don't want the blue voters. We don't want the Indians voting for Democrats from Canada. We'll make you a territory like Puerto Rico. You won't get the rights of like a state. You'll be like Puerto Rico. You'll be like Guam, and it's okay. Because as Guam, as Puerto Rico 2.0, you won't get any voting rights, which is for your own good, but you'll get all the guns. That's what we're willing to do. And a little bit of a tax cut. You're not a full state, so you don't get the whole, if Trump cuts taxes by 5%, you'll only get a 2% cut. But, the rest of the states will get the full 5%. But you guys can get a 2% tax cut. You'll get the Second Amendment, all the guns. We'll even give you your own specialized Navy carrier strike group to put in the Hudson Bay. Do we have an agreement here? Canadians, let me know. Should I send the contract? Because I think we need to finally get over this. I know they say sometimes no means no, but I think this time you are giving consent, but you're just playing hard to get, okay? You do want to be a territory. You want to be dominated by the American empire. You want us to own you. We'll take everything you have, but you'll be a great territory. And then Alaska can finally have a neighbor that's not Russia, because right now Alaska's like stuck in no man's land, You got Russians and then Canadians. It's like, come on, And then Greenland, okay? You guys have the nice little skylights, and we like that. But how do you feel about an Air Force base, a Space Force base in the Arctic? Okay, I know you guys think that the most beautiful thing you have are the Northern Lights, but how about some F-35s, baby? Some F-47s are coming too. How about that? Like, think about the beauty of an F-47 blasting through your airspace, our airspace, because you'll belong to us. You're part of the American empire. Look, Denmark. Is Denmark going to protect you? No, Denmark is going to kneel to whichever dictator comes up next. The Danish don't really believe. The Danes, they don't really want you, but we do. We want you. We want you. We want to have you, and we want all your land, whatever you got under that land too. We want the mines. We want all of it. We want the snow. We have to melt it though, because it's probably too cold. We'll get some. We'll build a prison, like a cold, frosty prison. it'll be like our own, we have alligator Alcatraz. Like, we can build like a colder version of that in Greenland. We could send all the young thugs up there, the young thugs that run Chicago and Memphis, all the ones Trump arrested. We can just send them over to like some part of Greenland, one of the like icy parts. They can go freeze up there. It's not cruel because it's going to be American territory. It's not going to be foreign. But come on, like, you guys are missing out. And then after Greenland, like, we might as well just, Iceland's like, we need the view, and you guys are blocking the view. Like, we could just do with you as well. So we could take you after. But Greenland can be a state, okay? Because I have a feeling they'll vote red. But Canada's a territory. They stay as a territory. And we want the Panama Canal back. The United States built it. We want it back. Okay? We want the canal back. We built Panama. We made Panama gain its independence from Colombia. And we think we'd prefer to have the canal back so we can conduct trade like how we were always supposed to conduct trade. Anyways, I'm a little bit of an imperialist. Gisa Traz. You're thinking smart. Polar bears. The polar bears can vote, but not the Indians, not the Canadians, not any of you. Okay, the polar bears get a vote, okay, as long as they don't vote Democrat. But I have a feeling they're going to vote red. Okay, polar bears, they usually like red. They like voting Republican. They're conservatives, really. They've been out there for thousands of years, so they'd probably like to, exist. They don't want, penguins to be imported from Antarctica, penguins that won't assimilate to Greenland. So the polar bears up there would probably vote red to build a wall to keep the Antarctican penguins out. Okay? But yeah, we want Greenland. While we're at it, we could just look. We don't want Mexico. We don't want Mexico. Heck no, man. We don't want Mexico at all. We want no part of Mexico. You guys are gonna completely screw us. First of all, you don't speak English. Me no, amigo, me no speak good English. Like, we don't need to hear that. Okay. We already have Mexico. It's called Texas. It's called Texas. We don't need another Mexico. Okay, we need the American Empire. While we're at it, we might as well. Let me stop. Okay, let's pray, because I do need to eat dinner. Pretty hungry. Just need to eat something and then go to sleep. All right. Lord, we thank you so much. I pray that you continue to give our leaders wisdom to do what they're in office to do. And you continue to expose those who aren't doing their jobs and give the people, not just our leaders, the wisdom to pick correctly. In Jesus' name, amen. All right. Alberta 51st. They can be a state. I don't like the name Alberta. It's a very weak soy name. Alberta, that's like Alberta. That doesn't have an American, excellence energy to it. We need, I think something like, North Montana really works. But then we'd have to change Montana to South Montana, because if we have a north, we must have a south, right? Albert? Oh, yeah. Alberta is a woman. Albert's a man. Yeah, that might work. If we want to keep it feminine, we could call it Berta. That sounds good. Yeah, Berta. It's like a grandmother name from medieval Europe or something. Berta. from Poland, Berta. Anyways, I hope no Albertos or Albertas or Bertas get offended. Okay, where's everyone watching from? Upper Montana, yeah, because then, yeah, we wouldn't have to change Montana's original name. The water flows naturally downstream through the Rio Grande and is diverted by U.S. irrigation districts in Texas, mainly in, okay, you guys are cooking now. 50 hours after my rant. Let me know where you guys are watching from. Okay. Terrence and Phillip. Bird or Traz. Okay, now we're going back. We can't create jails everywhere. Oh, we have someone watching from Berta. Okay, Berta people are in the house. Georgia, now go to bed. You think I'm going to bed after this? I'll wake up pretty early tomorrow. I try not to sleep too much, you know, because sleep is for losers. Virginia, Detroit, Hawaii, Arizona, South Dakota, Liberia, Siberia. Okay, you guys are just joking. All right, good night. Now we're really black.